Sunday, and not too rough on the old pocketbook.
Costco might think otherwise, but bigger isn't always better. Find out why with these 10 popular Costco items you have to stop buying now. Ground coffee.
You get the free iced coffee every time I go in, which is every hour on the hour. Thank you very much, and occasionally on the half hour.
Some folks just gotta have their coffee. Amongst coffee drinkers, more than 50% surveyed said they drink 3 or more cups of coffee a day, while 80% said they had at least 2. When chugging the caffeine at that rate, you'd think it would make sense to hit up Costco for an oversized tub of pre-ground coffee, but it actually might not be the best option. This is especially true for coffee drinkers that are concerned with the quality of their cup of joe. Almost instantly after coffee beans are ground, they begin to deteriorate in quality. Once the beans are ground up, they lose almost 60% of their aroma, flavor, and overall strength. While the factory process of vacuum sealing helps, once that top is popped, the grounds are once again exposed to oxygen. Deterioration continues the longer the grounds are exposed, and in the case of the oversized Costco tub that takes much longer to finish, it will seriously affect the quality of your morning pick-me-up. So start hitting that snooze button when it comes to bulk buying your favorite morning beverage. Condiments.
What, possession of a condiment?
A hot dog isn't a hot dog without mustard, and French fries just aren't the same without ketchup. So it only stands to reason that you might want to stock up on your favorite condiments in large bulk bottles at a lower price on your next Costco run. But overloading on those oversized containers might have you in a sticky situation sooner than you'd expect. Dips, sauces, and basic condiments do typically contain quite a bit of preservatives to maintain shelf life, but they don't last forever. That's a bad combination when paired with the bulk-sized Costco containers that actually do seem to last forever.
Can't believe it.
While some condiments that sit on Costco shelves can hang out there for quite some time, the clock starts ticking once they've been opened. Mayo, for example, is good for 3 to 6 months if it's just sitting unopened in your pantry, but it's only good for around 2 months in the fridge once the seal's been broken. Ketchup, on the other hand, will be good for almost a year unopened, but will start to seriously lose color and flavor in half that time after it's been cracked open. Refrigeration can help slightly extend some of those deadlines, but another factor to weigh is if your fridge has room for all those oversized condiment jars to sit for months and months on end. A better strategy is to take advantage of barbecue season, when regular supermarkets typically discount the smaller-sized condiments that will take up less space and take less time to empty. Toilet paper.
There's no toilet paper over here.
It wasn't that long ago when the nation was awash in a great toilet paper shortage. And back when toilet paper shelves were empty, we were all wishing for a Costco-sized pack of TP. At the peak of 2020 panic buying, nationwide toilet paper sales jumped an astounding 845% in March of that year. That equated to nearly $1.5 billion of toilet paper sales in the 4 weeks of March alone. By the final week of the month, TP was out of stock at a staggering 70% of grocery stores, and that even included online sellers. Estimates have shown that in normal times, buying patterns reveal that the average American household goes through 409 rolls of the white stuff every year. And to keep up with demand, the leading manufacturers crank out over 7 billion pounds of washroom wipe each year. At those numbers, the Kirkland brand 30-pack seems like the perfect solution to stay stocked up. But in practice, that idea isn't so great. Consumer testing from Good Housekeeping magazine showed Kirkland toilet paper to be just average in thickness, absorbency, comfort, and strength. The scores on strength got worse when the tissue was wet. Testing also found it doesn't break down easily in water, and that can lead to clogged pipes and a phone call to your local plumber. If that's the case, Costco toilet paper should be flushed permanently. First time here? Then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's easy, and there are no lineups. Now, more Costco. Paper towels.
Lagos. For when you make a mess, you didn't mean to.
While the world never experienced the horrors of any great paper towel shortages in the last few years, we'd only recommend Costco-branded paper towels in an emergency situation. And considering how much of the stuff we use every day, hopefully that day never comes. Paper towel is more popular than ever, having an approximated 322 million Americans using the white wiping stuff every day. And that number is projected to increase by 10 million more by the end of 2020. 2024. Racking up that seemingly endless amount of rolls accounted for an annual nationwide count of $6.5 billion worth of paper towel sales as recently as 2 years ago.
If you're gonna ditch me, ditch me.
While Kirkland brand paper towel isn't the absolute worst on the market, there are certainly better options. A 2018 Consumer Watchdog study tested the in-house brands of a few different paper towels for strength and durability under pressure, and the winners and losers were clear. The process involved pouring a cup of water onto a single sheet and using quarters to test just how much weight each sheet could hold before tearing. Of the 4 tested, Kirkland scored third behind Bounty, the winner with 120 quarters per sheet, and Viva, 88 quarters per sheet, as Kirkland was able to withstand 68 quarters before buckling. And last but not least, Walmart's Great Value paper towel brought up the rear, holding only 7 quarters. Spices.
The thing about this is I don't know much about the ingredients of any of this stuff. I just grew up eating it.
Just because that spice rack full of flavor enhancers doesn't technically require refrigeration, that doesn't mean there isn't a shelf life for everything on it. While herbs and spices don't go bad in the traditional sense like other perishable foods by developing off-putting tastes, textures, or smells, they still fall victim to the passage of time. And there's a big distinction between how they're prepared that dictates how long they stay usable. Whole spices can stay effective for as long as 4 to 5 years when properly stored, but anything ground suffers a much shorter fate.
99% of the time, yes.
Much like coffee grounds, exposure to light and oxygen starts to break down the color, flavor, and strength of ground spices as soon as the top has been popped. They can hang on as long as 6 months, but about 3 months from being opened is when things start to droop. Strictly to maintain freshness, it's best to buy smaller containers and replace them as needed, as opposed to letting that 5-pound Costco-sized tub sit and wither until the next bake sale or Christmas party when you can finally use the whole thing. Flour.
Flour babies.
This classic cooking ingredient also needs to be used up before its time is up, otherwise, flour loses all its power. The quintessential baking ingredient is also a great thickener for soup, sauces, or stews, and has its place on pantry shelves and kitchens across the country. Just don't leave it there forever. Much like other perishables, the giant-sized Costco bag doesn't help in the race against time. By the time you get to the bottom of that giant sack of flour, the quality of what's left will be bottomed out. White all-purpose flour can be good for almost 12 months, but this depends on storage conditions. Any flour that is whole wheat-based as well as nut-based will go bad in only 2 or 3 months. For the gluten-free crowd, coconut flour and almond flour are even more prone to spoilage because of their high oil content. So unless you're running a bakery out of your kitchen as a side hustle, keep your flour fresh by avoiding the big bulk bag. Canned goods.
You're eating 8-year-old tomatoes.
Here's one Costco item where the expiry date is one thing you don't have to worry too much about. But it's still best not to buy canned goods in bulk on your next Costco trip. According to the United States Food and Drug Administration, canned foods can last anywhere from 18 months to 5 years. The variation depends on what's actually in the can, but one thing that doesn't change from can to can is the reason to stay away: the ridiculously high sodium count.
That's a twist.
The salt levels in canned foods are so high because it's needed to extend the shelf life and prevent bacteria growth in each can. Sodium is used across the board as a preservative because it's cheap, non-toxic, and also adds a flavor boost. But the average American already consumes at least 5 teaspoons of salt in a typical day, which is over 20 times the necessary amount our bodies need. It's a must during the canning process, so there are very few canned products out there that don't pack high sodium content. But it's best to only buy a few cans here and there instead of loading up your pantry because of the great deal at Costco. And when you do open that can, don't ask anyone to pass the salt. Milk.
You can drink a gallon of milk in 10 seconds?
There's an old saying about not crying over spilled milk, so the next time you get a craving for milk and cookies, try to get your mood juice from somewhere that isn't Costco. This isn't because the quality's poor, but because it's actually difficult to pour. In 2008, Costco redesigned their gallon-sized milk jugs into awkwardly square containers that went viral on sites like Reddit over how difficult they were to balance while pouring. Despite all the wasted spilled milk milk it has created, Costco stated the change was to reduce costs, as the boxy design was easier for the company to pack and ship. But many were left to wonder whether they accounted for how in the heck customers were supposed to pack the containers into their home refrigerator. By 2021, customers in some regional Costco stores noticed the square design had been tweaked to help with the pouring process, but complaints still came in about the revamped design still creating a milky mess. Pouring a glass of milk really shouldn't be that much of a challenge. Eggs.
3 eggs, crack them in.
Milk is part of a complete breakfast, but one of its most important partners is another Costco item that doesn't need to be purchased in the humongous-sized carton where you get a few dozen at a time. FDA recommendations are that eggs are good for about 3 weeks in the fridge, and this is due to safety regulations.
I'd expect nothing less.
In the USA, eggs need to be properly cleaned and rinsed before they're shipped out for sale at stores. This process removes harmful contaminant agents, but also opens the pores of the eggshell and causes them to spoil faster. This shortened lifespan doesn't lend well to stocking up on the big Costco cartons. So if you decide to buy eggs by the perfectly reasonable dozen, don't worry, nobody will call you chicken. Alcohol that you've actually heard of.
Why don't I just tap a keg for her?
Okay, so yes, we've been looking at Costco items you should avoid, but this one's a little different. In the case of Costco's alcohol selection, you actually should pick up the Kirkland branded products. While Costco carries a wide selection of famous name brand liquor products, their in-house brands of alcohol sold under the Kirkland Signature banner have gained a solid reputation all their own. Even though it's been denied by both Costco and Grey Goose, an urban legend has persisted for several years that the vodka inside both bottles is exactly the same. While it isn't, of course, the fact that a bargain brand can be high enough quality to be compared so closely to a well-known manufacturer is testament enough to how good it is. Grey Goose has been manufactured by global giant Bacardi since 2004, when they purchased the brand for just over $2 billion. At the time, it was America's hottest-selling vodka, to the tune of moving over 1.5 million cases of the stuff that year. But it may have built a reputation on marketing instead of quality, relying on celebrity endorsements over the years from the likes of movie star Jamie Foxx and rapper Lil Jon. Taking an opposite strategy, Kirkland's stripped-down and straightforward branding has left the marketing to how well the actual product performs with customers, and it has been a huge success as well. It repeatedly fares as good or better in blind taste tests and does so at a much smaller price tag per bottle than its competitor, which costs nearly twice as much. And vodka isn't the only Kirkland signature spirit that's on par with the big boozy brands either. The signature blended Canadian whiskey was comparable to Crown Royal in more than 50% of results, and their signature Irish cream liqueur packs a similar taste and texture to Bailey's Irish Cream. The next time you stock up on your liquor cabinet at Costco, skip the idea that name brands are better and get your cocktails for cheap. Stick around, leave us a comment, hit that subscribe button, and tap or click on another great video.